Hi guys, welcome to another session on security transformation. And it's been a while that I have posted a video, but I was working on a Azure AZ 500 exam, which I passed recently. So here I am with another episode. This session is about how cloud infra is different from our traditional environment and how security needs to be configured differently. The security intent and the goal remains the same, but how it is done differently in a cloud environment. So let's begin by looking at what has fundamentally changed in the cloud. Okay, so to start with a believe it or not scenario here, here you can see a simple infrastructure built on Azure cloud. And most of my examples will always be from Azure because that's the environment I mostly work on and I absolutely like it. So, in this case, how many of you know that the virtual machine marked in red here has a default access to the internet? And that internet access does not go through the Azure firewall that we see on the left side. So, by nature, any new VM that you spin up has a default access to the internet. And as you would have built VMs on your own, you can even assign a public IP address to the VM when you are building a new VM. And that VM can be accessed from the internet without coming in through the Azure firewall or any perimeter firewall that you have in your network. So this is completely different from the way we do networking on our existing infrastructure that we have on-prem. So one thing that has surely changed in the cloud world is networking. So let's see how we can fix this. So two solutions are there, which you can see on the screen here. If you are using Azure or, as a matter of fact, any other cloud service provider. One is network security groups on the left side, and the other ones are the user-defined routes, or we say UDRs. So basically, user-defined routes are to force the traffic through a gateway or push it to the Azure firewall that you can see here on the screen. And NSGs are always implemented to basically allow or block access from the internet. So, looking at this and the previous slide, we can see that networking is definitely one domain which is fundamentally changed, and it has changed significantly. And this is because of the use of something we call software-defined networks, and they do not work the way our traditional VLANs used to work. So in software-defined networks, what we do, so basically we virtualize the networks by abstracting resources from their physical devices. I mean, how we do in the case of storage or how we do in the case of compute. Similarly, there is an abstraction which happens, and then on top of it, the virtual networks or VNets are built. So that is what we normally use in our conversation, virtual networks. So you can see one on the screen here as well. So SDN is a technology which has been a differentiator between how we do networking in the on-prem infrastructure versus what we do in cloud networking. And one more important issue has been highlighted here is that the firewalls and the traditional security controls are not enough for cloud security. So we need to have a few other options as well. How do we secure our resources in the cloud? And that is also one of the reasons why we say identity is the new perimeter. So let's see how we can do it. So it's Azure time, and let's see how we manage resources securely in the Azure environment. You can see a layered approach here to security when we are creating or managing resources. And resources could be virtual machines, it could be NSGs, subnets, and this is how flow works when a user is or user or say any identity is trying to create or manage a resource in the Azure environment. So the first line of defense on the top is of course the Azure Active Directory authentication. It needs to be authenticated, and if MFA is configured, it will identity will have to present the multi-factor tokens. And the second line of defense is the conditional access policies. So conditional access policies are the basically zero trust solution from the Microsoft. So even if the user is authenticated and has an authorization level, he will not be able to access the resource if he does not meet the conditions in the policy. Say, for example, location. So if access to any resource is allowed from your office network, and if a user is trying to access the same resource from the home, this policy will block the access. So this is a very important security control. So the third line of defense is a role-based access control, as you can see on the screen. And so this has been traditionally used in the on-prem environment as well. So a role is created and attached to the identity, and then whether that identity has a read-only or a contributor role, in that way they can access or manage the resources basically. And the next layer of security is Azure policies, and that's where cloud security controls start getting a little different from the on-prem. So Azure policies is a very important governance control, and this is often overlooked because when we are trying to simulate the same controls from on-prem to the cloud, these may get missed basically. So basically, although you may have a right to, or maybe a right role to create or manage a resource, but if a policy does not allow you to create a resource, say in a particular region, for example, I am here in UAE, so you can define a policy that you cannot set up a new database instance outside UAE. So if that policy is there, then I cannot create any instance which is outside UAE. And this is a very important from a data residency point as well. So this could be very effective control to meet the data residency requirements. And the last one is the resource providers and the locks. So, resource providers are basically the services that we use in Azure. For example, if we are using NSGs or we are using subnets, so the resource provider is the Microsoft network. So, Microsoft network is the resource provider, and NSG is the resource type that we are using. And lastly, logs. So this is for the managing resources. If a resource has a read-only log, then you cannot modify or delete the resource. And if it has a cannot delete, or we normally see there on the portal as delete. So if you have that log, then you cannot, I mean, you can modify, but you cannot delete the resource. So this is again a very strong governance tool which must be used to manage the resource effectively. So this is overall about how to access, manage, or basically create resources. Absolutely necessary, especially when we have already seen that we can access the resource directly without going through a regular network security layer. Other important security activity that we should be doing is the cloud security posture management. which I have shown on the left side here. It is absolutely necessary to keep evaluating threats and misconfigurations and baselines. We have Azure Security Center from Microsoft. It's a great tool, a very comprehensive security tool, which can keep us or our infrastructure secure from the threats. And not only Azure infra, you can manage threats on your on-prem infra as well. And it can detect threats and provide us quick solutions as well. And now we have even it covers Kubernetes server in its scope. So, and basic version is free, so it is good to use Security Center. And the next one is Azure Sentinel or any other SIM uh, for log monitoring and SOC activities. And then lastly, Azure Monitor. So basically, you need to log everything, you need to monitor continuously to improve the security posture of your whole infrastructure. And on the right side, you can see the network security controls. Yes, they are necessary as well, and they should be very much part of your defense in depth strategy. So you can use Azure Firewall or network virtual appliances from Checkpoint, Palo Alto, that is for the perimeter, and then you can have a DDoS protection. So Microsoft gives two versions of DDoS solution. One is a basic one, which takes care of all layer three uh, attacks, basically all the volumetric attacks. And if you want more advanced capability, you can take a standard version, which will take care of advanced layer 7 attacks as well. So then you have, of course, we have discussed this before. You have network security groups, and finally web application firewalls, because web is very much part of your cloud infrastructure. And again, WAF, you can take it from Microsoft as an inbuilt capability or a third-party solution. So that's it, guys. If you have these things in place, you will be in a safer zone. I mean, I would say safer zone, not a very secured zone, because there are a lot of other things as well which you can do to secure your Azure cloud infra. And before winding off, I would just like to put a note on using a third party or a vendor solution versus using Azure capability. So, my personal opinion is if it is a single CSP that you are using like Azure, so you should prefer to go with a Azure security solution. Because, I mean, integrating third-party solutions may add a lot of complexity, API integration, because now tools mostly interact through APIs. So it may also increase your attack surface. I mean, for example, DDoS protection or WAF, you may be having a very good solution uh, in your on-prem solution, but please make sure you take a conscious call before using same solutions in the cloud as well. So that's it, and thank you for listening.